Hello, bros. We're back with Anyone's Son, a true story by Roberta Roche and Harry de la Roche Jr., who is the killer featured in the story. 15. While Harry was giving his statement, a great deal was happening elsewhere. Inside 23rd East Grand Avenue, the teams of Montvale County and state officers were continuing their detailed search. At 6:30 a.m., investigator Del Preet told the investigative personnel that the State Police Identification Unit would be handling the collection and marking of all evidence, so the evidence could be taken to the New Jersey State Police Laboratory for analysis or turned over to the Montvale Police. Among the things removed were possible .22 projectiles, .22 caliber projectiles, bloodstained linens, pieces of bloodstained carpet, possible .22 caliber spent cartridges, 2 white socks with stains on them on the floor next to the right-hand side of the double bed in the master bedroom, throw rugs and towels from the bathroom, the contents of the trap underneath the bathroom sink, rubber mats from the bathtub, and a 6-inch section of the box spring of the double bed in the master bedroom with a possible projectile in it. Later, additional things were inventoried and removed. By 7:15, an all-out crime scene search was underway. The bedrooms where the bodies were located were photographed, and assigned officers began taking other pictures. Plastic bags were placed on the victims' hands and heads. As far as the officers could speculate, Harry Sr. had been shot while sleeping in the master bedroom. They based this theory on the blood they found on the bed and floor. By the disarranged clothing and blood marks on Harry Sr.'s front and back, it appeared his body had been moved. The officers also speculated that Eric had been shot while in an upright position, since drops of blood on the back of his legs indicated he might have been standing. Along with the blood on his pillow, headboard, and dresser, there were spatterings of blood on the ceilings and wall. There was also a substantial amount of brain and bone matter from the skull. As part of the investigation, police dispatcher Frank Motram confirmed that Harry had driven to police headquarters at 4 a.m. to report the family's death. He recalled the extension telephone lights operating at that time, but said no material connection or conversation resulted. Harry remembered picking up the emergency phone and trying to make a connection the way one would dial a normal phone, but what he was actually doing as he said hello, 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 was hitting several of the call boxes that the policemen use. This was why he could not get through. By mid-morning, the bodies of Harry Sr., Mary Jane, and Eric were taken from the house, and Detective Ewings of the Montvale Police was dispatched to the medical examiner's office to participate in the post-examination of the bodies, the removal of evidence, and the photographing of this phase of the investigation. The 3 bodies arrived at the medical examiner's office approximately 10:15 a.m. The 3 bodies arrived at the medical examiner's office approximately at 10 p. I don't know why it's missing, but whatever. The first autopsy was performed on Harry Sr. 1 bullet was recovered from the brain, and bullet fragments were recovered from his skull. There were noticeable bruises or abrasions on his inner right and left underarms, top of his left hand, and both knees. Bullet holes were observed in the right eye and behind the left ear. The second autopsy was on Mary Jane. There were no observable bruises or abrasions on her body. 2 bullets were recovered from her brain. After a preliminary examination of Eric, Dr. Dennison determined that he had been shot 3 times. Later, he had died from a strike on the left side of the head that appeared to have been done by a blunt instrument. Following this determination, Dr. Dennison suspended Eric's autopsy until 11 o'clock Monday morning. While the searchers and autopsies were going on, Searches and autopsies were going on. Spectators gathered on the De La Roche's corner, and telephones started ringing through the area. As the Bickerton family returned from Mass, they noticed the crowd by the De La Roche house. Harry's family is having a sale, Harry's friend Jeff remarked. But then I saw the crime scene sign, Irene Bickerton stated. I said, oh no, something terrible has happened, and Jeff turned white as a sheet. I thought he was going to get ill on the spot as he yelled, don't let it be Harry. Later, Jeff was interviewed on TV, but the anguish he felt was so overwhelming he couldn't even look up. All kinds of stories were passed around before many hours elapsed, but the multiple murders seemed so unreal that many people who heard the news refused to believe it was true. When we received the first call, our immediate reaction was, don't tell us stories like that, remembered Roger Anderson. And when Eric's friends, the Mulligans, heard the news from a member of the Montvale Athletic League, Patricia Mulligan, discounted it so much, she said to Mitch, run over to the De La Roches and see if Eric is home. But then as people kept calling, I had the terrible feeling there must be something to it. So I told Mitch not to go. I still refused to believe it, though. Till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the message we kept getting was the De La Roches had been killed, and it looked like a gangland slaying. When we heard one family member was missing, we prayed that Eric had gotten away. Captain Hannah phoned Ronnie's friend Andy Cannon and asked if he knew Ronnie's whereabouts. I told him no, and I didn't worry, Andy said later on, because I figured he'd probably slept over at somebody's house. Then at 11 a.m., a friend called up and said some De La Roches had been shot, and they didn't know where Ronnie was. I hung up the phone and got my bike. Then I rode everywhere that morning trying to locate Ronnie. Later, somebody asked me, do you think Ronnie could have done it? I simply stared at the guy who asked. There wasn't any way in the world that Ronnie could have pulled the trigger. Harry's friend Steve was pumping gas when he learned an alert for Ronnie had gone out. When I first heard it was for a brown-haired youth, I didn't think of Ronnie, he reported, but when I learned it was for a triple murder in Montvale, I had a terrible feeling it involved the De La Roche family. As far as Harry doing it, Harry wouldn't have had the guts to do a thing like that. Harry De La Roche is my best friend. I know him better than anyone else. Jeff Fritz, who'd been with Harry only hours before, received a call from a girl he knew who'd met Harry once or twice. There's trouble at that kid Harry's place, his informant revealed. Someone has disappeared from the house, but I've just heard fragments of the story. Jeff drove to Grand Avenue as fast as he could, and when he learned several people were dead and Harry was down at the station, he went to the station immediately to see what he could do. Captain Hannah also called Jeff the Causemaker and asked him to come to the station to help in locating Ronnie. If I remember correctly, the officer didn't say what was wrong. The officer didn't say what was wrong, Jeff said in describing that morning, but he stated it was very important to locate Ronald De La Roche. I was completely shaken up, but I left right away for headquarters. Then on my way to the station, I passed the De La Roche house. When I saw ropes around the house, I stopped to find out what happened. I'll never forget the answer because the person I asked replied, they're all blown away. And that's the end of that section. As I said yesterday, a lot of these sections are very short, and hopefully that means I can read a bunch of them and get on with the Kennedy assassination book. All right, bruv, goodbye.